Hey, this is Keith from Save the Rust. Today I'm going to take that 1942 Harley apart and then bring it into our basement workshop. Today's actually a pretty nice day in Manitoba, Canada. It's about -0 degrees. So you know what? I thought I got to get this bike into the basement. I won't be working on it in the garage here because I don't heat the garage. And in the winter, I spend all my time in the basement working on the bikes. And in the summer, when I'm in the garage, I'm trying to keep my bikes going and working on them, on the running bikes, on the completed bikes. It's pretty rare to do, full build in the garage for just various reasons. So watch as we take this one apart and we haul it down into the basement shop today. My back won't be happy, but I will. So this 1942 Harley here, this one's a Canadian version. I believe Harley Davidson made about 88,000 of them, plus parts. So even to this day, you can still find new old stock parts. The beauty of these bikes, though, is that you can ride them, wear them out, rebuild them, ride them, wear them out. They're just made so well. And there's a reason they're still running 80 years later. And you can really ride them. You can put some real miles on them. With some proper gearing, like a 33, 34 tooth front sprocket, you can do 65, even 70 miles an hour. So just to give you an idea, picked the bike up back in early November. Rode out, did a 2,000 mile trip with my kid Waylon, and we picked up this project, another frame, extra motor, extra tanks, and then a Newell stock frame, Newell stock springer, Newell stock front fender toolbox, rear passenger seat, etc., etc. Lots of Newell stock parts. So we have a few military builds on the go here already, and we also have a couple of completed bikes. I ride a 42 Harley. That's what I love. So yeah, we've got quite a few of them. So this is just another one we'll put into the lineup to get restored at one point. So this one has some of the military parts, but it's missing quite a bit too. Always gonna be looking out for like skid plates, early 42 Canadian air filters, front fender lights, etc. So if you notice, it's kind of, when I was moving it, it's kind of wobbly. This was just mocked up by the previous owner very loosely, so it's not going to take a lot to disassemble most of it because it's held on by a few bolts here and there. And yeah, I wouldn't want to try and pull it into the basement shop in this fashion because you're holding on to fenders when you're going down the stairs. So it's just easier, and I'm going to take it apart anyway because when I go through these and start assembling for, basically just to understand what I have and what I don't have, I like to do it properly. I like to go through it, make sure I got all the parts so that when I go to restore it, I have the parts, I know what I'm missing. I have a list of everything that the bike needs, and we'll go from there. So, like that wasn't even attached, so it's gonna go together, come apart pretty quick. So stay tuned. Repop seat. So I've been playing with these bikes for probably close to 10 years now. When I first started on them, like when I first started riding, the general idea of 45s was that they're too slow, you can't ride them anywhere, they're unreliable, blah blah blah. Man, every one of those people had no experience with these bikes. They didn't know what they were talking about. I can tell you these are solid bikes. These are tough bikes. I can ride mine anywhere. I'll go anywhere with it, you know. And it'll do all terrain. I've taken it off-roading and just have fun with it. Like, these are super solid bikes, you know, low compression. They're not, you know, these aren't for racing. You can modify them to race, but this one, you know, in stock form, they're not for racing. They're just solid bikes that were designed for a war. So what I just pulled off was the seat, the T-bar, and then if you don't know, this is a pogo, and while this one doesn't want to move, it usually has suspension in it. Everyone, you can see this, you'll see the suspension travel. That's your suspension because these are rigid frame bikes. So they had to have some sort of suspension, and those seats that Harley made, you know, 80 years ago, they are some of the most comfortable seats you could ever imagine. Most of the stuff wasn't even tightened. You know, wrong hardware. So that'll all get fixed as we go through this. So here's a military fender. Doesn't look too bad. I mean, it needs work, but there's a pipe here. That's for your wiring for your tail light. You can see this one's missing one bracket from here to here, but you know, some of the holes have been filled in for the rear stand catch for the tail light. You can see some brazing and some welding where the mounts were. There's some rivets missing. So this is all stuff that we'll address in the future. Aftermarket battery box. These things are that you have to almost replace them. The originals are usually so corroded they're just useless. Here's a unique feature for I believe it's only Canadian military. T-handle. The Canadian military, you had to have this T-handle to pull the axle out faster. Same with the front axle. And on Canadian Harleys, they use the Star Hub, which was interchangeable front and back. American, they had a integral brake drum in the hub. So it was a totally different front wheel on an American versus a Canadian Harley. The Canadian Harley used a big twin front brake drum, and so you could change the front wheels back and forth. You would just take the brake assembly off, and those tools were in your tool kit. So it was just a better idea. You know, you're in World War II, you know, a bike gets hit in the front. Now, if you're an American bike, you have to find an American front wheel. But you could, on a Canadian bike, you could pull the back wheel off an American bike, the front or rear wheel on a Canadian bike, and I believe also the sidecar wheel on the sidecar, but don't quote me on that one. It's been a while since I looked into it. So 18-inch wheel, mechanical brakes, and we'll go through this and make sure it's all there and works. So, little neat thing here. So this is the oil side, this is the gas side. There's a dipstick to see how much oil you have in your oil tank. And this oil tank, you'll see in a second, it goes around the gas tank. It's actually pretty neat, pretty unique. If you've never seen one, it'll be interesting to you. Hey, so here, this is the oil tank. You see how it's concaved in, and the gas tank is actually concaved into the recess of the oil tank. That's pretty neat. So this gives you, I think it's 3 gallons of fuel. I'm not sure. This is probably 4 liters of oil, something to that effect, so close to a gallon. These gas and oil tanks are starting to get pretty hard to find in decent shape. So, you know, when I was looking at this bike, that was one of the things that I really wanted to make sure that the tanks were in good shape. You know, they were through a war and stuff, you know. So, as I put the bolts back in, you'll notice all the oil fittings on the bottom here. I'll try and get up a little bit closer for you. So here we have the tanks. This is the oil side. This is your drain. There's a vent tube, there's a feed tube, and there's a return tube. This is your gas side, that's your gas drain. This is your fuel rod. So the fuel rod comes through. This rod goes all the way through here. That's the early version of a petcock, you know, where you normally, on newer bikes, you'd kind of turn it. This is, you screw it in. This rod is kind of tapered, goes into a receiver, shuts the fuel off. Tank shift. So this is pretty unique how they painted it blue and white. But you got 1, neutral, 2, and 3. 3-speed transmission, gas on this side, oil on that side. So then we get down to the motor and transmission. Motor is 750 cc. It is a 45 cubic inch. As you can see, the transmission wasn't even bolted in. I was told this was a good running transmission. We'll go through it. It's got the wrong filler. It's got this cover here for the sprocket. I mean, it kicks over, turns over, whatever. We'll go through it, make sure it's good. So there's at least 1 bolt holding the motor in. Oh, no, 2. Maybe 3 whole bolts. So one of the things, you know, one of the first things I'll do with this is I'll probably put the frame onto the jig. Maybe I might just do that later, and take a look how straight it is. I haven't decided yet. All depends how, you know, how quick I want to put this thing back together. I mean, I'll take it apart anyway later when I do go to rebuild it, and I put it on the jig anyway. So I either put it on the jig now or put it on later. What's the difference? Again, this is my project. I don't have to answer to anyone. You know, you'll see. You know, I'm bouncing around from projects. Yesterday we worked on a Flanders. The day before we built this shelf for some Harley 45 motors. You know, I was thinking about doing some, see if I can work on the wheels. There you go. Work on the wheels for my 42, but I gotta be in the right frame of mind for that. If you've ever laced and trued wheels, and I've never been taught by anyone, again, all just self-taught, it cannot be fun when you're not, you know, educated in it and learned it from a school or something. So there's the motor. Motor's out. I got a stand for it in the house. Crash bar. This is your crossover. I think it's called a belt crank. That's your part of a shaft, part of an assembly for your rear mechanical brake. Your pedal's over here, rod goes here, moves that, blah blah blah, turns engages another rod that goes to your brake, rear brake. All right. There's your handlebars with your internal spark vents and throttle, horn. These will get repainted green. Doesn't matter if I scratch them a bit, whatever. So we'll take off the top crown nut. I was trying to get off the kickstand, but It almost feels like the rod is bent because it's not allowing this to come out. So it might just stay on for now. It's not a big deal. Okay. This is your floorboard strap and for your rocker clutch. This is your pivot point. So we'll pull this off. We'll have to pick up all the little ball bearings that these front ends work on. They're not, so on newer Harleys they use like a roller bearing, like a Timken caged unit. On these early ones it was all loose rollers, loose ball bearings. A roller is like, it would be longer, like a cylinder. So this is a ball, like simply like a ball. This part here, that's like a friction assembly to slow down your rebound ride control, they call it. Well, let's see how many we're going to lose here. All right. So again, as we take all this stuff apart, you know, one of the things we're going to look at is just the condition of everything, like the condition of the races, and because what happens is they get grooved because the forks only move this much. It's not, they don't roll around. They just roll and then they roll. So they just roll a little bit, roll back. So you tend to get grooves in your races. So you want to replace them so that when you're going down the highway and turning, everything's just nice and smooth, no issues, no resistance. And with this, the bike's apart. Now the fun part is carrying it into the basement shop. This part is much easier to, when you're bringing it down in pieces, than when I finally finish a bike and bring it up the stairs in assembled form. The last time we did that was last spring, and we did my 37 big inch flathead and another 1942 Harley 45. And we used my backhoe with a winch system, and we had the winch pulling up the bike, but we still had to push it up as we went, and it worked out pretty slick. There's some video on it. Check it out. So in my basement workshop, I have, you know, all my extra parts for 45s, some tools, my frame straightening jig, and it's just a nice place to work and assemble bikes, work on them. You know, coffee is only on the next floor. We also got a TV downstairs to watch some YouTube videos. So we got the 1942 all apart, hauled down the stairs into the basement. Let me tell you, the motor's heavy. That one. So anyway, we're going to start on that either today or tomorrow, reassembly. But, you know, right off the hop, I've noticed a couple things that, you know, that's what you notice when you take a bike apart. you know, there's a couple issues I've seen, but nothing that we can't fix. So here's the front fender. I mean, I had looked at it when I was there. You can see there's some repairs here, some welding. There should have been 2 rivets. There's been some welding here. That's a little bit of a rough spot. I mean, I do have another fender I can cut out and put this back in. Not a big deal. It's a military fender. I'm happy to have it because they're hard to find nowadays. One of the cool features, as soon as I pull the seat off, you can just see this faint, you have to get in the right light, but there's some numbers here. And so if you look close, 42 WLC, and there's 15310. So, you know, this is not a Harley number, but not really Canadian military, but kind of. It was almost like they put a serial number on it so they could track which chassis, when they rebuilt the motor, which motor went into which chassis. So the Canadian, somewhere in the Canadian government, they stamped the numbers in here. And I have a few different bikes, a few different frames with numbers, and they all are a little different. These ones are really small, but they're always in the same area. I have another bike. The numbers are at least twice as large. So, you know, one of the other things I kind of noticed, I'm going to have to look at the tanks. You know, right around here you can see some body filler. I mean, again, these are 80-year-old. I don't expect them to be perfect. They're not new old stock. But, you know, you just hope underneath that it's not just completely beat up. I bought one tank once and it weighed about 10 pounds because of the amount of lead filler in it. So, and that's actually this tank here, which I cut out. I cut the inside out, and you can see some really bad, I don't even call it repair, but you can see just how rough that tank is. So I cut the inside out so I can pound all these dents out and try and get this tank back into use. So here we go. We'll start on this today or tomorrow.